To some Transformers throughout the franchise, their alt modes have become a defining characteristic. When you think of Grimlock, you'll probably remember that the leader of the Dinobots transforms into a T-Rex.
Me, Grimlock, kick butt.
Even though he has had some changes over the years. Though there have been attempts at updating Soundwave, most remember this loyal Decepticon for transforming into a micro cassette player.
As you command, Megatron.
But the most controversial alt mode was taken by none other than the powerful leader of the Decepticons, Megatron.
Beware, Autobots! I am about to transform into the most powerful weapon in the universe!
I am about to transform the Autobots into atomic particles!
Times have certainly changed. Back when kids more frequently played outside, games like Cops and Robbers were played with toy guns that looked real. Several transforming toy guns were made for Takara's Microchange toy line, including the now infamous Walther P-38 in 2 different color schemes. They even fired plastic pellets with a spring mechanism when the trigger was pulled. A modified version with a silencer, scope, and stock was released as Gun Robo P-38 Uncle, as it was designed to look like the same weapon used in the popular 1960s TV show, The Man from U.N.C.L.E. When Hasbro brought Takara's toys over to the US as the Transformers, the U.N.C.L.E. variant was chosen to be the leader of the Decepticons.
Those will be the bad guys. Guns are not good. That'll be the head bad guy.
Without the sword and the ability to fire pellets removed, the toy was released under the name Megatron. According to his tech spec as written by Bob Budiansky, the ruthless leader of the Decepticons believes in peace through tyranny, as he wishes to plunder Earth's resources and destroy the Autobots. In the early commercials for the toy and comics, an animation model for Megatron was used with a black helmet, yellow eyes, and the barrel of the gun on his back instead of on his side. This was most likely made from the prototype images of the toy used in Microchange's promotional material. It was this design that was used for Megatron throughout the early issues of the Marvel Comics. When Floro Dery redesigned his robot model for the cartoon, he gave the maniacal leader of the Decepticons a redesigned gray helmet as it matched the toy. The comics adopted this model, but his black helmet remained. Unfortunately, the comics had a hard time figuring out a use for Megatron when in his alt mode though. Since the comics only had robots fly if they had a vehicle mode that did so, Megatron would transform into a human-sized gun mode using mass shifting to be carried by one of his troops to and from battle. But when Shockwave took control of the Decepticons in issue 5, Megatron was forced to guard the Ark where the Autobots' bodies were left hanging on the ceiling. Ratchet attempted to save his teammates when he came face to face with the deposed Decepticon leader. The two chose to perform a Cybertronian covenant known as the Rite of Oneness to allow Ratchet to find and save the Dinobots. But when Megatron betrayed the Autobot medic, the Dinobots came to the rescue. At the end of the battle, it was Ratchet who ended up pushing Megatron to the ledge of an unstable cliff. Megatron fell when the cliff gave way, and he was forced to transform to save himself. While in gun mode, he was found by a small-time crook named Joey Slick, who was about to be axed by 2 hitmen for not paying their boss, Lomax. But the Decepticons' firepower was more than enough to handle the 2 hitmen in one shot. Slick then learned that he actually had found a Transformer. Megatron's higher brain functions were damaged, and he was only able to take orders from the human. Slick then used the Decepticon leader to go on a very successful crime spree until he chose to confront Lomax. During their fight, Slick threw Megatron to the ground and knocked Lomax out. The impact reconnected Megatron's damaged circuits, and the mighty Decepticon took charge of the situation. Having accomplished all he had set out to do, Slick accepted his fate. This amused Megatron, who let Slick live, and left to rejoin the Decepticons. Using one of Bombshell's Cerebro shells, Megatron controlled the human Ricky Vasquez to attack the Hoover Dam while in gun mode. The Decepticons use a space bridge to siphon energy from the dam back to Cybertron, but the aerial bots came to the rescue. Thinking of his daughter, Ricky broke free of the Decepticons' control and he used Megatron to blast away the space bridge. The Decepticons were then forced to retreat. After witnessing Optimus Prime get blown to pieces, Megatron's sanity went off the deep end. In his rage, he even blasted a regular truck because it looked like Optimus Prime. Shockwave sent the Predacons to hunt him down before he became a further danger to other Decepticons. However, Megatron proved to be more than a match for them even after they merged to form Predaking. After learning of Shockwave's portrayal, the haunting of Optimus Prime's memory sent Megatron in a fit of rage as he destroyed the Decepticon space bridge while standing in the middle of it. Throughout the rest of the comics run, Megatron was not seen transforming again, but it was in the cartoon that gave Megatron's alt mode a better use as a powerful weapon. Voiced by the legendary Frank Welker.
I am Megatron, leader of the Decepticons. You will do exactly as I say.
Megatron commanded the Decepticons throughout the first 2 seasons of the show.
Now there will be no power in the universe to resist me. Decepticon rule forever!
When transforming into gun mode most of the time, he mass shifted into a gun that one of his Decepticons could use to fire on Autobots. Anyone on the receiving end of that blast knew that Megatron's firepower was seemingly amplified when he transformed.
Prime is target, Soundwave! Fire! Optimus!
This also meant that his use as a weapon would have to be carried out by a Decepticon whom he trusted to not only believe in the Decepticon cause, but one with good aim. Most of the time this was either by Soundwave or Starscream, even though the latter desired to usurp Megatron as leader of the Decepticons.
It's time for a change, Megatron. It's time for action, not words. I am the leader of the future.
You couldn't lead androids to a picnic. How can you pretend to lead the Decepticons?
Megatron could also break free of whomever was using him in alt mode. In the episode Roll For It, Skywarp's motor relays were being commandeered by Teletran 1, forcing Megatron to break away. This also happened in the episode Autobot Spike, when Megatron tried having Spike betray the Autobots.
What are you waiting for, Autobot Spike? Use my power to destroy them! Yes!
When the human's mind inhabited the Frankenstein robot Autobot X.
You fool! You've turned my power against my own warriors!
Even without his troops, Megatron was still a formidable instrument of destruction.
Because everything I touch is food for my hunger for power!
In the episode The Ultimate Doom Part 3, he was even able to quickly fire on the Autobots by transforming in mid-air. In the episode Countdown to Extinction, Megatron realized that Dr. Arkaville's exponential generator was too unstable for his own uses. Even though he fought Optimus Prime for it, he chose to have Prime use Megatron in gun mode.
Take this while I transform! Oh, load me! Fire!
To blast the generator into space.
Welcome home, noble Voyager!
In the episode The Insecticon Syndrome, Optimus would have Megatron transform again to fire antidotes on the Insecticons to prevent them from exploding. During the development of Transformers the movie, the writers decided to give Megatron an update as the reborn Galvatron. The details for that will be a discussion for another day. His new toy had a space cannon mode, as well as a space laser gun mode that was never seen in fiction. While this was a throwback to his previous self, it was clear that this was the beginning of a change to Megatron's alt mode. Megatron would receive one more toy during G1 as an Action Master. Instead of transforming, he came packaged with a transforming Neutro Fusion tank. As the 1980s continued, several real-life events with children and toy guns pushed for new legislation. By 1992, the US Department of Commerce prohibited toy guns from being made or sold unless they had a blazing orange tip or were brightly colored. This prompted Hasbro to give Megatron a brand new mold in 1992 during Generation 2 as a large green and purple M1A1 Abrams battle tank. Standing taller than Power Master Optimus Prime, this new Megatron toy featured firing missiles and various sound effects, including the now famous. In 1993, a second, smaller version of this tank Megatron was released in a purple deco. This hero-class toy could fire soft-tipped missiles by smashing the attached air pump. From there, the change in Megatron's alt mode became an altogether common thing. The final G2 toy was part of the GoBots assortment as a silver-colored matchbox-sized Porsche. The short-lived Machine Wars Megatron would be a basic-size and easy-to-transform teal-colored F-22 Raptor. While characters outside of G1 have taken on the name of Megatron, none of them sport his classic firearm mode. In Beast Wars, a new Megatron who proudly had taken the name of the original,
Megatron, greatest leader of the Decepticons, my namesake,
began as a large purple T-Rex. Even though the first toy of him released was an alligator that came in a 2-pack with a bat Optimus Primal. The details of him will also be a discussion for another day.
Yes.
In the Japanese anime Car Robots, a new Decepticon commander known as Gigatron had several different alt modes. But when Hasbro brought the series over to the US in 2001, they had to name him Megatron because they had to protect the name trademark. The same goes for Galvatron, who was a slight remold of that toy and featured 4 additional alt modes. The Unicron Trilogy's version of Megatron has had several alt modes over the course of its run, from the Minicon capturing Tank and Armada, to the space jet with a tank on its back in Energon, to a triple changer with a jet and a Batmobile for alt modes. In all 3 series, Megatron also received recolors under the name of Galvatron.
Ha! I'll say when this is over, and that's when I wipe you Autobots out!
In the IDW comics, Megatron was empowered by Or-13, which allowed him to use the mass displacement sequence to transform into gun mode. Using a facsimile construct to wield him, Megatron was a force to be reckoned with. After the events of All Hail Megatron, the leader of the Decepticons was given a new and more powerful body, equipped with a railgun and the ability to create space bridges for himself at will. Megatron's new alt mode was that of a stealth bomber. This was a throwback to Megatron's unreleased recolor of Generation 2's Dreadwing. His original body was used to create guns that contained fragments of Megatron's consciousness. After many battles, Megatron's stealth body was badly damaged, and he was transferred to a new and more familiar-looking body. During the development for the live-action films, a very G1-inspired Megatron was designed that transformed into a tank. But when Michael Bay signed on to direct, the design for Megatron was changed to look like he walked out of a giant blender. Bay was already adamant about changing his voice to that of Hugo Weaving. But when fans saw the robot design, they demanded that it be changed. The only thing that Michael Bay was willing to change in Megatron's final design was his face. But for Megatron's alt mode, they chose not to have him take an Earth-based vehicle mode. Instead of a gun or a tank, Megatron transforms into a Cybertronian jet. While this was a cool new take on his pre-Earth alt mode, the filmmakers stated they discussed this during development, thinking that it would be like Darth Vader transforming into his own lightsaber and having someone else wield him. While this analogy would work better if it was Palpatine transforming into Vader's lightsaber, it was clear that the filmmakers, especially Michael Bay,
Disgusting.
had no respect for the source material.
So that would make me definitely a Transformer head geek somehow.
After being rebuilt in Revenge of the Fallen, Megatron's updated alt mode was a tank that was capable of flying, much like his previous space jet mode. In Dark of the Moon, Megatron took the disguise of a beat-up Mack truck. but was only seen transforming once. The events of Age of Extinction in the Last Night, since it pertains to Galvatron, will have to be a discussion for another day.
We shall meet again, Prime, for I am reborn.
The legacy of changing Megatron's alt mode clearly influenced the Cybertronian design for him in Transformers Animated. However, when he finally did take an Earth-based vehicle mode, it was a helicopter to go along with the idea that only the Decepticons can fly.
Decepticons, transform and rise up!
Voiced by Corey Burton,
Get away from my weapons of mass destruction!
Megatron's robot mode is clearly inspired by his G1 design. However, for Transformers Prime, Megatron was designed to look like a cross between G1 and the live-action films, proving to the world that the original voice actors still fit their respective roles.
One shall stand, and one shall fall. You, Optimus Prime!
Frank Welker finally reprised the role of Megatron.
Why leave matters to fate if one can forge one's own destiny?
Like his movie version, this Megatron did not take an Earth mode as he transformed into a Cybertronian jet. Out of all the various takes on the character, many still believe that Megatron should still be a gun. And there certainly hasn't been a shortage of Megatron in this alt mode either. In 2006, the Classics Megatron toy had an alt mode based on a Nerf Maverick blaster, with bright colors to boot. In Japan, however, Takara released the mold in chrome colors to match his G1 cartoon counterpart, since toy gun laws are very different over there. In fact, his G1 toy was also reissued several times in Japan, along with two Masterpiece toys that sport his classic Walther P-38 alt mode. When Hasbro wanted to reissue his G1 toy in the US back in 2002, they attempted to alter his colors, but they could not convince Toys R Us to have the retail space for the toy. In the end, Megatron's US reissue was ultimately cancelled. In addition, Megatron in his gun mode has been an accessory with several different Transformers toys over the years. The recent reissue for G1 Starscream came with that accessory as well. The best modern update to Megatron's alt mode has clearly been a tank. Still a powerful weapon, the tank alternate mode clears Megatron's not only from US toy laws, but also from having to be used by one of his troops, as he can roll and fire on his enemies by himself. This update has been used for his Cybertronian mode several times, in addition to Earth-based tanks as well. Most recently, Megatron is now a tank in both Transformers Cyberverse, as well as the War for Cybertron Siege toy line. This doesn't take away the fact that his gun mode does have its merits. While Megatron does need to be used by another Transformer, he's more powerful when in gun mode. His firepower alone was able to kill Brawn in one shot. While he is tyrannical,
I will build the ultimate weapon to defeat the Autobots, to control the planet, to conquer the universe!
he's able to effectively show his troops that he can put trust in them to carry out the Decepticon cause by wielding one of the most powerful weapons, none other than the leader of the Decepticons himself. While either a tank or a gun or anything else, Megatron will always be a force to be reckoned with. Even though toy laws today may prevent him from taking on his rather cool-looking gun mode, we can be sure that the leader of the Decepticons will crush anyone who stands in his way. After all, guns don't kill people, Megatron kills people.
Such heroic nonsense.
But what do you think? What alternate mode do you prefer for the leader of the Decepticons? And do you find merit in Megatron still having a gun mode? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you like this video, be sure to thumbs up and subscribe. I'd like to thank my patrons and my channel members for your support. I have many more Transformers discussions like this coming soon, so stay tuned. And as always, until next time, till all are one.
And they call themselves Decepticons. I shall be avenged, Autobots. I shall return.